Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And this is kind of an impromptu live stream that I just decided to do, sitting here at home on Sunday evening. Want to do something, and I was like, well, I still got these list of top 10 movies per decade that I still haven't finished. I need to go through, and I like to do these as live streams. It gives me more time to really talk and talk about movies I really enjoy and recommendations to anybody who hadn't seen these movies. So yeah, so I was like, it seems like a good time to just do a live stream. Uh, it's later in the evening, 6 o'clock here, so I know my English friends probably are, going to bed or in bed by this time, so I won't get to see them on the live stream. But hopefully, somebody's around maybe and will view this. If not, hopefully we'll watch it and yeah, get to enjoy some of my favorite movies from this decade, which is the 1950s. We're going through the 1950s now. We went through 2010s all the way to 1960s was the last one I did. Really enjoy putting these together and trying to show off some of the movies I have in these lists. I plan on going to the 1930s, so I got two more live streams like this to go through and get through all the my favorite movies from those decades. Yeah, so of course, farther we go down, the less movies I have from that decade, and more movies I need to get into my collection for sure. But I do have a fair amount of 1950s movies to show off. Um, 1950s, of course, it's a period where both my parents were born in the 1950s, so we're going to the baby boom generation in the 1950s era. We're getting past World War II, and we're now getting to the Korean War, and so we're now into like the Cold War era, I think, of politically during that time period. We're still probably getting some, World War II movies out there, which are still very popular. Of course, 1950s, in this period where we're getting somewhat away from black and white movies. There's still a lot of black and white movies coming out, but like most of my list is really movies in color. Like I think I have one black and white movie on my list. So it's still a thing, but still color is really popular right now. And when you get the 1950s, which I enjoy. I mean, I enjoy a good black and white movie, but definitely color adds a little bit to the visuals of the movie. So visually, movies are getting pretty good visually, I think, during this time period. And there's Technicolors, I think, now coming a big thing in the 1950s. Um, all right, hey Jackson, how you doing? Good to have you here because I know you know a lot about movies, and I'm interested if you know a lot about the 1950s period. I know you just watched like Lawrence Arabia, which is the 1960s period. So you're getting to those older movies. I've always enjoyed watching older movies like from the 1950s era. Uh, there's still always good movies, no matter. Some people don't like to watch movies from older periods, but even to the 1930s, there's some really good movies out there that I think everybody should check out. Not let that hinder you that they're older movies or they're in black and white or whatever. Anyways, but yeah, 1950s still some really great movies coming out of this period. Some of my favorite. Um, like I said, visually it's getting a lot better. I think even sound wise, it's getting a lot better. Um, I think it's 1950s is also I do love this period of you're getting family friendly movies. Like I said, it, I do love a good family friendly movies though. Like I said, once you get in the late 60s into 70s, you're getting movies that are getting not family friendly, that are pushing the boundaries of what you can do in movies as far as morality and all that. Though 1950s does still deal with racism and stuff like that, obviously, still a big point in that period of time. So you still deal with all of that. But for the most part, I enjoy watching these movies and knowing that they're going to be nothing offensive in them. I do kind of enjoy that quite a bit. And of course, I grew up watching like Disney movies from this time period. I was a big fan of Disney movies from the 50s, 60s era onward. So yeah, so definitely that kind of period of time. Um, I'd say it's a really good period for epic movies. As I was going through my list, like definitely these really long, epic, you know, type of films. Like Ben Hur comes out in the late 1959. But you got like the Searchers is a nice kind of epic western with John Wayne. You got The Robe, is this biblical epic with was it Richard Burton? Um, the Ten Commandments, another biblical epic. A lot of biblical epics coming out during this period. That was very popular. Um, yeah, so that's definitely what I think about a lot of that kind of stuff. I have a couple of like courtroom dramas in here that are really good. Not as big on the musicals, though. There are a lot of musicals. I'm bigger on the 1960s when it comes to musicals. I think they get really good. I love musicals, but 1950s. I have a couple musicals in my list, but you got a lot of like the Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby and Gene Kelly, who's great. I love Gene Kelly as well. You get a lot of really good um, musicals from some of those people. I think the Rat Pack is big during this time period, maybe 50s or 60s period, anyways. And yeah, so you get in those kind of musicals, which aren't necessarily my favorite type of musicals. Uh, that's not my era of music necessarily, but yeah, I still got those kind of musicals out there. um, but yeah, I don't have as many comedies actually. I usually like comedies from this period of time. I don't have as much on my list. Some have some romantic comedy type aspects. Um, let's see, Jackson's got some stuff here. Yeah, definitely transition period from black and white to color. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I have 8 movies from the 50s rated 5 stars. They're on black and white. Yeah. Okay, good. So you got 8 that you really enjoy. Hopefully, some of these are on my list. I still need to see a lot of Bill Cup 50 that was like Ben Hur. Yeah, Ben Hur is a big one. One of the biggest for sure from the 1950s era. It's definitely an interesting period when I think it's definitely kind of when we start getting method acting becomes a big thing with Marlon Brando really hitting the scene. And then you got uh, James Dean, of course, was huge, and he did like 3 or 4 big movies and then died. That whole thing there, and he was known for his method acting, and I think there's some others. I think Dennis Hopper even was like a method actor from that period. So you get in these new type of actors during this period that are, yeah, definitely feeling the roles more, anyways, and becoming those characters more, I guess, in a sense. And Marlon Brando was really big on that. I mean, watch A Streetcar Named Desire from 1951. Amazing performance. Like, I think his best performance, and probably, I mean, he should have won an Oscar. It was so good, and he didn't win for that. But he got nominated for like 4 years in a row. He got nominated for Best Actor, and then he won in 1954 for On the Waterfront. So, I mean, to me, that Marlon Brando was probably the biggest actor of this period. He was really coming out on fire and kind of changing the game, I think. Like I said, in acting. I mean, you got people like Rock Hudson and John Wayne from the old Hollywood. I would say still, doing some good stuff here. Gregory Peck's becoming a big thing. I think Charlton Heston's a great decade for Charlton Heston because, like I said, he's a great epic actor. He only does epics, it feels like, and he comes out and does some of the great epics of this period. You just still have a lot of good westerns. It's still a good decade for, I think, westerns. Like I said, John Wayne's doing a lot of good stuff here. You still got some great directors like John Ford, really killing it. William Wyler, Billy Wilder, um, yeah, Elia Kazan. Yeah, you still got some really great directors during this time period. Some of the most iconic directors of all time. So, yeah, really good decade. If you don't know it, I love Singing in the Rain. Singing in the Rain is probably the biggest musical of the 1950s. That's definitely a huge one that everybody talks about. Probably the best directed musical I've ever seen. Even if I have some issues with the characters, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Singing in the Rain. That's my hot take. I watched it actually recently. I finally got around to watching that one, and I don't know. I found it real boring, and that's probably surprising to somebody because everybody loves Singing in the Rain, and it has some good moments. Like I really like Gene Kelly. Gene Kelly is like, yeah, he's my favorite. Like he's my favorite actor as far as goes dancing. Even better than like Fred Astaire, who's more in the 1930s, 40s period. But when you get Gene Kelly in the 50s, like his dancing is so good. Like he's the best dancer, I think, and he's so talented, dancing, singing, acting. I mean, he's a really talented guy. I really like Gene Kelly and stuff like, On the Town and stuff like that. I know he has another one where he's like a sailor and he's dancing somewhere. Uh, And then I don't know if it was American in Paris came out this year, I believe. Won Best Picture, if I remember right. Yeah, and you got yeah, those are some of the great actors of that period. And I was gonna say Marilyn Monroe was huge during this time period. Uh, like Some Like It Hot was a big one, and I know she did some other ones. She was in All About Eve, I know, in a small part, and 7 Year Itch, and yeah, it was a great period for Marilyn Monroe. Became like the it girl, like the bombshell, the blonde bombshell of that period. She was everywhere, picture wise. It seems like. Obviously, Elvis is getting huge. Right? I don't know if he's doing movies yet. It's probably 1960s when he started doing his movies, but obviously Elvis is huge. His music's getting big during his time period. Rock and roll is becoming a big thing and getting into the movies. I would say some of my favorite actors, like also I would say Jack Lemmon comes out in this period. I love Jack Lemmon. Uh, he's kind of a younger actor in the mid to late 50s. And he's doing some of the greatest comedic work of all time. Like he's my favorite comedic actor ever. Henry Fonda is still out there putting some good stuff in. Um, Jimmy Stewart's doing some really good stuff. So yeah, so many good actors coming out this period, and actresses and directors, and yeah, a lot of good movies here. All right, so that's kind of a little bit just a take on the 1950s period, which is kind of interesting to look at. Every decade is kind of its own, you know, movies change every decade, I feel like, and have their own, fingerprint on the history of movies. Um, I love to explore that a little bit. So first, I go through my honorable mentions, which I don't own any of these on Blu-ray or DVD, so I can just mention them as movies. If you haven't heard of them, definitely. I was say Hitchcock. Hitchcock is still doing some really good stuff in the 50s. Another great old time director. Um, but yeah, these are some movies definitely check out if you haven't checked them out. First one is I'm going to talk about is Rear Window. It's probably my second favorite Hitchcock movie behind Psycho in 1960. And good, Jimmy Stewart gives another just absolutely great performance here. And it's so iconic, I've seen some of this parodied so many times in TV shows, and other movies have done similar ideas of a guy who is kind of peeping on. He's got a binoculars, and he's kind of somewhat peeping Tom, not in a sexual way, but just you know sticking his nose in everybody's business, and like trying to see what people are doing in the apartments next to him, because he can't go anywhere because he has a broken leg, and so he's just sitting in his apartment looking out and seeing what the lives of other people, and then he witnesses a murder and tries to solve that, I guess. And great tension there. Jim Stewart's great. I think Grace Kelly, wonderful. Yeah, definitely check that out. One of my favorite Hitchcock movies. Next one I'm talking about is Roman Holiday. It's one of my favorite romantic comedies, I would say. Gregory Peck, Audrey Hepburn, William Wyler directing, and it came out, I think, 1953. And Audrey Hepburn is just absolutely wonderful. You fall in love with her right away. This is the very first movie, Roman Holiday, and she wins the Oscar for Best Actress for her very first movie, and she was the youngest actress at that time, I think, to win the Best Actress. I think she was like in her 20s, if I remember right. Uh, yeah, and she's just absolutely beautiful, and she's this princess, and they're in Rome, and so the whole movie, they're black and white, but they're going around Rome area, so it's really cool. And Greg Peck's, of course, really great. Oh, you haven't seen Rear Window? Yeah, that's a great one. Hey, Mike, I thought you'd be in bed by now. Sorry, I'm doing kind of a late live stream. Hopefully maybe you've heard some of these movies, Mike. But yeah, Roman Holiday, great romantic comedy, in my opinion. Then you got Stalag 17, Billy Wilder movie, which is another comedy set. It's weird because it's a comedy set in World War II, American POWs in a German POW camp. Not exactly a place you think of comedies, being a prisoner of war, and during the Nazis, are in charge. I mean, it's not all comedy, but it's definitely got a lot of comedic elements in there, a lot of comedic characters. Great cast. Okay. Okay. Something like, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, they did one on Castle. I feel like every show has done a Rear Window kind of parody, which is great. Um, but yeah, Sonic 17, really good movie. William Holden wins the Oscar for Best Actor for the performance, and playing, yeah, not really a big dramatic role, more comedic. As they're, they made a TV show called Hogan's Heroes, made based off of this movie. Um, but yeah, it's a really really fun movie if you can say that from a World War II POW camp type movie, but really good. Okay, yeah, you go to sleep, Mike. It's kind of late for you. Let's see. You can tell me the 8 movies you got. 8 movies I'll be alluding to earlier are 12 Angry Men, fantastic movie, love that one. Seven Samurai, yeah, classic. Rashomon, so you got some Japanese movies here. Sunset Boulevard, yeah, that's a classic. That I don't like Sunset Boulevard, but everybody loves Sunset Boulevard. That's everybody's like favorite Billy Wilder movie. And I don't know, I just not into it as much. It's not. It's kind of got a not a happy ending type movie, and I don't like the characters that much. Big one for William Holden. I mean, the acting's pretty good. The main actress does a good job playing a crazy lady, but I don't know. It's just not. It's kind of a miserable movie to me, I guess, and not a lot there that I like. But Night the Hunter, I haven't seen, but I've heard of that one. There's a kind of a thriller movie where guys I know chasing kids. I think at some point. A Man Escaped. I haven't heard of that one. Don't know that one. Wages of Fear. Don't know that one either. Kiss Me Deadly. Yeah. So yeah, I know Jackson. He likes some of the non-mainstream movies that I don't know about. He gets onto a lot of those, and foreign movies. He really likes foreign movies that I'm not as in tune to. So uh, definitely have to check those out. Then Man Escaped, The Wages of Fear, and Kiss Me Deadly. I have to look those up. Sounds interesting. Give them 5 stars, so you must really like them. Yeah, so Stock 17, definitely want to check out. Also, another, I think, Billy Wilder movie, I believe, is a movie called Witness for the Prosecution, which is a really good courtroom drama. And I love courtroom movies. Like, I have a couple on my list, and yeah, I love courtroom drama movies. Um, yeah, they're some of my favorite types. And Witness for Prosecution, really good one, maybe one you haven't heard of before. I believe it's nominated for Best Picture. Now I'm forgetting the main actor. The main actor is really good, and he's getting a little bit older during this time period in the 50s because he was bigger in the 30s period. But the main actor really good, and it's got a good twist and it's a courtroom drama in England, so it's a little bit different because they do a little bit different courtrooms in England, and but I liked it, and yeah, some good stuff there. But yeah, definitely check Witness for the Prosecution out. Uh, a movie I really like that a lot of people, I feel like, diss this movie because it won Best Picture, and a lot of people didn't think it should, and that is The Greatest Show on Earth. It's kind of another epic, kind of maybe somewhat epic, but it deals with a circus, a traveling circus. And Charlton Heston plays the lead, like the ring, master that's in charge of putting the whole circus together. And it's interesting because he dresses like Indiana Jones in the movie. So if you watch this movie and see how Charlton Heston wears the hat, he has like the jacket and everything except for maybe the whip. But if you look at it, you go, yeah, Indiana Jones definitely. George Lucas definitely got his idea of Indiana Jones on Charlton Heston in this movie, Great Show on Earth. But yeah, really fun movie. It's got some good moments. The train sequence where the train hits the circus train, or the circus train hits a car and goes off the rails, done very well for the 1950s. And some good, like, there's some kind of romantic drama in there as well. And I'm trying to think of names, but it's got a really good cast. Jimmy Stewart plays a clown in it. He's in clown makeup the whole time, which is kind of odd. You don't see Jimmy Stewart regularly. He's just always in clown makeup. Still, Jimmy Stewart's absolutely amazing. I mean, you got Charlton Heston and Jimmy Stewart, two of my favorite actors during this time period in this movie. Um, yeah, so I'm trying to think. The actress is really good in here as well. Yeah, it's a really good movie. People didn't think it should have won Best Picture, but It's actually one of my favorite movies from this time period, and I'm totally okay with it. I think it won, I want to say 1953. I think it won, maybe somewhere around there. It won Best Picture. But yeah, I definitely still think you check it out. Let's see, A Man Escaped is about a prison break. Yeah, sounds about right. A Man Escaped. What is fears about people transporting dynamite across the jungle? Okay. I guess film noir. Yeah, film noirs are still pretty big during this time period. Definitely 40s was big with Humphrey Bogart, but 50s are still getting, I think, maybe some of that. Um, are you a fan of Disney movies from the 50s? There's a good few, like my favorite Sleeping Beauty. Yeah, it's a good question. I'm trying to think of what is from the 1950s. I'm a fan of Disney animation for sure. Sleeping Beauty is not one of my favorite. That came out in the late 50s. That seems like I think Cinderella might have came out in 1950, which I like Cinderella a lot. That's probably my favorite from the time period. Um, I'm forgetting what else because we are getting to the regular princess movies in the 50s. We're kind of transitioning from uh, the clip movies from the 1940s period where they're just shorts put into movies to 1950s. We're getting Cinderella, which is an absolute classic. Sleeping Beauty, absolute classic. So I definitely get into some of the more princess type movies, more narrative movies, and they're definitely getting better. I think Disney and I'm forgetting all that's in the 50s on top of my mind, but I don't have any written down, so I don't think the 50s is my favorite period of Disney movies. To be honest, uh, I mean, there's some good stuff in the 70s and 80s, and then the 90s it gets really really good as far as Disney movies go. I'm not a fan of the 40s. The 40s period, I think, is not very good as far as Disney goes, animation wise. But yeah, that's a good question, Jackson. I have to do some research on that. But yeah, let's see. Another great comedy from the classic from the 50s is The Father of the Bride. They did the remakes with Steve Martin in the 90s. That's you might know those, but definitely check out Father of the Bride. I think came out in 1950 with uh, the main actor, really good actor in the lead. I'm forgetting at the top of my mind. Um, I think it's what's her name? I can't remember anybody right now, but the actress is a really good actress, but she's young. She's like really young in this movie, who plays the bride, and then Spencer Tracy plays the father. That's what I was thinking of. Who great actor, all the way from 1930s. So he's getting a bit older here, but he does a lot of the narration on this movie, and it's a very funny movie. Kind of looking at being a father and what it's like to have your daughter, your oldest daughter, get married and how that goes through. And yeah, definitely a really good 50s comedy. I think that still holds up as a really good movie. And then I got Some Like It Hot, which Mike mentioned in the thing. I had put on here just because Jack Lemmon gives probably the funniest performance of his career in this movie. Uh, Him and the other guy, they trying to get away from the mob, so they join a all female band, and so they have to dress like women. So it's one of those tropes of guys trying to look like women and trying to pass themselves off as women, and it's sometimes that can be a little hokey, it can be a little gimmicky, but Jack Lemmon is just absolutely hilarious trying to play female in this movie, and his back and forth with Marilyn Monroe is really great. Marilyn Monroe is really good in this as well. Um, I would say the story doesn't. I don't like the story as much. Like it's a little too long at times. I don't care for the them trying to get away from the mafia aspect, and some of the romantic aspects don't work well with the other actor. To me, when Jack Lemmon's in it, it's good. When he's not, it's not as good. But still has a really funny ending to it, and still it's worth a look, just a watch, just to see one of the funniest actors of all time. I think Jack Lemmon doing his thing. I didn't get any water. I forgot to get some water, so my voice might not survive here. Uh, then the last thing I'm going to mention, I'll mention before I even get to my top 10, is The Court Jester, which is another really good comedy starring Danny Kaye as a court jester. But yeah, it's another one where If you never heard of it, some people who like this movie, it's like their favorite movie or some of their favorite comedies. Yeah, it's one I need to watch again, but I put it on my list just because I remember it being a pretty funny comedy, and I like Danny Kaye a lot. Danny Kaye is a really great actor, really comedic actor during this period, and so I almost watch anything with Danny Kaye in it. But yeah, it's definitely one to check out from this period. Another good comedy. All right, so that's my honorable mentions, and now I get to my top 10 favorite movies of the 1950s. And like I said, there are definitely some big ones that aren't on my list. It's always that's my hot takes, like Singing in the Rain's not on there. You know, uh, All About Eve is a big one. It's not on there. Sunset Boulevard's not on there. And I understand those are big movies people love. And I have some big ones, and I have some ones that probably aren't as big. But that's what makes everybody's list, unique. And some of it's just the way I grew up. I grew up on some of these movies. My parents would watch these movies when I was little. And so I kind of got some nostalgia for them just because I loved them when I was a kid and still love them today. But, anyways, number 10, I'm going with a Christmas musical, one of my favorite Christmas movies, and that is White Christmas. Um, Starring Bing Crosby, you got Danny Kaye in there. Um, yeah, Rosemary Clooney, who is like great aunt of George Clooney, I think, or aunt of George Clooney. Dean Jagger, really good actor. And then Vera Ellen is one of the best looking women of all time. This girl here, she is, she is hot. She when she's on stage doing a dance, I can't take my eyes off of her. Got the best legs, maybe, of any actress. But anyways, and believe me, when I was a kid, I noticed that too. When I was a boy, I was like, "Huh, I really like women. I can tell from watching this movie." But yeah, it's a fun musical, Christmas, of course, uh, genre or influence movie. And this is one my mom watched all the time growing up. My mom loves this movie. My mom's a big Bing Crosby fan, and so ever since I was a kid, every Christmas I was watching A White Christmas. And I love about, of course, the musical aspects. I do love musicals, and there's some good stuff here. Of course, the song "A White Christmas" was a huge hit before this. It came out in, it was in the movie Roman Holiday, which was a movie with Bing Crosby and Fred Astaire. And so they made a whole movie because White Christmas, the song White Christmas is probably the biggest song of all time. It was number one for many years, from the maybe even the 40s into the 50s. Like, yeah, it's maybe one of the best selling songs of all time, if not the best selling. It was absolutely huge. And so they made a whole movie around it. Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye were in the World War II, and Dean Jagger plays like their captain, or their something like that. Maybe he was a general uh, in the army, and so they become like really good friends because they did musicals, they sang songs and stuff, kind of entertaining troops during the war. And one of them almost gets killed, and I think it was Danny Kaye saves Bing Crosby's character and hurts his leg, and so Danny Kaye, because Bing Crosby, feels guilty that, or not, he basically makes uh, Bing Crosby feel guilty, and because he saved his life, and he kind of says, you need to do something for me. He's like, yeah, sure, anything. And then he comes up with this idea that they should create this duo singing, dancing, entertainment thing. And so they become really famous as this like big time, duo that does dances and sings and stuff like that. And they put on shows and all this, anyways. And so then they meet the two sisters, which the two girls in here. They meet them, and they do a sister uh, singing show, and they have the song called Sisters. It's really popular. It's a pretty big number in the musical. But anyways, Danny Kaye kind of falls in love with the younger sister, and Bing Crosby falls in love with the older sister. And so then they go to Vermont to put on a show there at a like an inn, what do you call it, a bed and breakfast inn, whatever. And it turns out that Dean Jagger, their old general that was in charge, is running the inn. And so they kind of, coincidentally all meet up. And they go to Vermont, and they think it's going to be snowing because it's, winter time or something, but there's no snow. And so There's a question of like, is it going to snow? Like, where's the snow? And then finally at the end it snows, of course, and it's a white Christmas. Anyways, but it's a lot of romantic stuff going on. Some, as you do in romantic movies, something said or done that makes someone upset, and then we're trying to win them back. But there's a lot of great musical numbers. What I love about this movie is they're rehearsing to put on the show, and some of the musical numbers, like the costuming, the dancing, is just absolutely phenomenal. And it's a fun musical numbers as well. And yeah, it's also very funny. Danny Kaye is absolutely hilarious. He's my favorite character on here. Yeah, he has some great moments. There's a great dance between him and Vera Ellen early on. That's really great. And yeah, it's just if you like, it's like Singing in the Rain, but it's for Christmas, I think, because like if you like dancing, if you like big musical numbers, big stage, big costumes, or really great costuming. Um, it's a really good movie. I recommend anybody that likes that style. Let's see, Jackson. I need to go here soon, but a few other honorable mentions for me would be The Seventh Seal. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. I think that's the black and white Swedish movie or something with Ian. No, with Death. Is that the one with Death is playing chess? I think with the main character. The Killing. Yeah, is that the Stanley Kubrick movie I'm thinking of? Strada, I don't know. Rio Bravo, really good John Wayne movie. That's a good one there. And I to remember. Don't know if I know that one or not, but Jackson's always got good taste. Even if I don't like the movies he likes, they're still good taste, I would say. He knows his movies really well. Hey Norin, how's it going? Yeah, I'm live talking about the 1950s. Interested if he. Uh, I'm trying to think. Is there any horror movies coming out in 1950s? It's not really a horror decade, full of like I don't know if we even have any. I don't know if there's any Dracula movies or Frankenstein movies coming out or mummy movies. Maybe the Creature from Black Lagoon, was that coming out during this time period? Could be. I'm not sure. Maybe you know more, Norn. What kind of thrillers are coming out? But yeah. So number 9, I'm going with a biblical epic, another one I grew up on, and that is the Ten Commandments. And number 9 on my list, starring Charlton Heston as Moses. Yeah, it's a story of Cecil B. DeMille, big time director during this time period. Of course, it's covering the period in Genesis, covering the story of Moses, which feels like it's one of the most popular, you know, uh, person to in the Bible to cover in movies because it's definitely got a lot of great cinematic moments in it. And this is one of the best as far as covering Moses. I don't think they've done it better. I think they've done it a couple of times. Like Prince of Egypt is really good. That's a really good DreamWorks movie and good musical take on a little bit different, but really good take I think on Moses' story. It's definitely the Moses story though. Very epic. You got these really great, you know, big stages or whatever, tons of extras. Of course, it's a period piece, great costuming here. The music is wonderful. It's really boom, boom, boom. It's really, loud and bombastic. Really good performance by Charlton Heston and also, I'm trying to think, what's his name? Yul Brynner. Yul Brynner is great as the kind of fill-in Ramses in here. Yeah, Blob. Yep, Creature Live Act Loon. I was thinking that was in here. Attack the 50-Foot Woman. Okay. I have seen Blob with Steve McQueen. Yeah, interesting movie. Definitely, it's interesting because it's this blob and everybody's like trying to. It seems like you should be able to get away from a blob, but somehow they make the blob scary and it grabs onto people and all that. It's okay. It's not one of my favorites, but I have seen that one. Creature of Black Lagoon, I don't think I've ever seen before, but I know of it. But yeah, those are some good ones from the 50s period, Norn, for sure. But yeah, what do you say about Ten Commandments? It's just a great epic film and also very good as someone who's a Christian who's read the Genesis many times. It's pretty good. They have to add romantic stuff in there, stuff that's not in there. But still, it's a great looking movie. Like I said, it's huge. It's great acting. Great story. Moses, who uh, was put in a basket and put on the water to be saved because Pharaoh was killing all the babies at that time, which was horrible. And then the Pharaoh's daughter sees him in the water and raises him, so he raises as royalty in Egypt, and then finds out later that he's actually Jewish, and then when all that comes out, he then gets kind of exiled by Ramses, and then God calls him to. Of course, the Jewish people are being slaves and are working the fields and whatever, doing whatever for the Egyptians, putting up statues, and all that, and then the Moses getting called by God by the burning bush, to go back and free, and God's going to free the Jewish people who've been in prison for hundreds of years, I think, at that point. And it's a great story in the Bible. Of course, you have the plagues, it's huge, and they do a good job with that. Like the water turning to blood is always a great moment in the movie. Of course, the scene where the death goes around and kills the firstborn child, very dramatic moment, very scary. Uh, Done very well in the movie. And then, of course, probably my favorite moment is when they're they finally get freed and they're going out to the promised land, but then the Pharaoh Egyptians are after them, and he has to part the Red Sea. Really cool moment, even from 1950, 1956, I think this came out or something like that. Still pretty cool special effects with the water looking like it's really receding and parting ways, and then walking through it. Yeah, really well done. But yeah, it's I mean, Moses, one of the biggest, people in the Bible. Uh, his story is very famous and that we read all the time, of course, as Christians. And yeah, so it's great seeing it on the movies and the film. And Charlton Heston's so good as Moses in here. It's one that my parents watched all the time growing up. Of course, it's popular to watch it, I think, around like Easter or something like that. It's a big Easter movie. But yeah, my parents were always watching this movie growing up. So I just kind of grew up on Ten Commandments. So it's definitely one I had to put on my list. All right, number 8, I'm going to a courtroom drama, and this is called Anatomy of a Murder. I bought this actually recently on Criterion Collection, so very cool. It stars Jimmy Stewart as a lawyer. He's kind of a small town lawyer, I guess you can say in a sense. And he gets onto this case of this soldier who his wife gets raped and he kills the guy, and he's on trial, of course, for murder. But I guess Jimmy Stewart's trying to defend him, I guess, kind of saying that he wasn't in his right mind, like the anger that he had, learning about his wife being raped, like I guess clouded his judgment. I don't know, something like that. And or of course, it's hard to be upset with a guy if your wife's raped. I mean, yeah, you want to murder the person. Anyway, so it's a good trial movie. Jim Stewart's again absolutely amazing. Like I said, I love him in here. You also have what's his name? Well, Lee Remick plays the girl. Lee Remick was a young actress at the time. She's really good looking, and she's kind of known for good looks in here. George C. Scott plays the prosecutor. Again, kind of a somewhat early George C. Scott, pretty early George C. Scott performance. I know him more for like Patton and Doctor Strangelove later on, but George C. Scott's excellent as the prosecuting. So it's one of those. What I love about courtroom dramas when you get two really good actors as the lawyers and they're going back and forth. I mean, it's so good, and I mean, you can't get much better than Jimmy Stewart and George C. Scott here playing the lawyers here. And there's a bit of a mystery. He's still trying to figure out parts of the case, as it goes on. So there's a good mystery going on as well as good courtroom drama stuff in here. And I like it because you have Jimmy Stewart's more the laid back lawyer, country lawyer, and George C. Scott is the more uptight, big time lawyer going up against them. It's a really good back and forth between them two. But yeah, really good. If you like courtroom dramas, really, really good movie to check out. Sounds like an interesting film. Never heard of that one. Okay, yeah, really good one, Norn. Love George Scott. He's great. Yeah, he's in Exorcist 3. Right, that's right. Yeah, George Scott's a really good actor. Um, all right, number 7 is a movie I don't own at the moment. Definitely one I want to get, and it's another biblical epic. I guess I would say I do love a good biblical epic, and this one's called The Robe, which stars Richard Burton. I think it's the first Technicolor movie, so it's kind of has that significance to it. Um, and it's a movie about a centurion guard who's there when Jesus gets crucified on the cross. So it starts with Jesus getting crucified on the cross, and there's a robe that they put on Jesus, like when they put the crown of thorns on his head, and they put a robe on him, mocking him, like because he says he's king of the Jews, and they're like, "Oh, you're the king," and so they put a crown of thorns that are really painful, and they beat him. Of course, they beat him and whip him, and then they put a robe around him on his wounds, anyways, that's where we get the robe from. Anyway, so after he dies, they take his stuff, and they kind of they take whatever is left anyways, and so this centurion gets the robe that Jesus wore, and Richard Burton's character, and but then he starts getting to have nightmares. I don't know, it's really kind of haunting him, like this robe almost has like this magical power. Like obviously this is not true to real life, or it's not in the Bible or anything. It's kind of made up, but I love the idea, like he has this robe that Jesus wore, and it's haunting him, and it's like causing pain in him, and he doesn't believe in Jesus at that moment, of course, and so he's like something's going on, some kind of witchcraft, and so he's trying to figure out what's going on, what's causing this illness to him. Anyways, he ends up going to find Peter, one of the apostles, and he travels and finds. I think he's disguised himself not as a centurion or something like that, but he finds Peter, and I think and at that moment, they kind of figure out this robe thing, what's going on with the robe and the power that's in it, and I think he gives it to Peter or something like that. Anyways, and then once he gives it away, the illness goes away that he had, and it's kind of a bit of a movie where what I love about this period is they weren't afraid to talk about Christianity or converting to Christianity. I mean, later on that would be a taboo subject matter. Christianity is frowned upon in Hollywood today, but at this period, I love that they still were very friendly towards Christians, and the idea of the Bible and being like a truth and all that. And so I love that they're very respectful towards God in this movie, and that's what I love about this, and like the Ten Commandments, the respect they have for God in the Bible, and for people and the characters or for the people that are in the Bible. And so I like that they show Peter here, and he kind of converts to Christianity basically, because he sees the power of God through this robe. And he also meets people in this town that he's in, and kind of it kind of converts to Christianity, seeing how they live their life. And so then he has to go back to Rome and to his own wife, who's not a Christian, and kind of converts her and everything. And then the Caesar or whatever gets upset over all this. And anyways, I won't ruin the ending of the movie, but he has to fight persecution basically at the end of the movie. Anyways, but yeah, really great biblical epic. The Robe, definitely want to check out. Good performance from Richard Burton's great actor. Really good performance by him. All right, number 6 on my list is a great romantic comedy, one of my favorite, and that is The Quiet Man, which I don't have at the moment. Definitely one I want to get. I absolutely love this movie. John Wayne and Catherine O'Hara, I believe, is it Catherine O'Hara or Maureen O'Hara? Maureen O'Hara, maybe is her name. Really beautiful redheaded Irish lady who is really from Ireland, and she plays an Irish woman. So it's really really good role for her. And John Wayne, it's one of my favorite performances from John Wayne. And it's not a Western. I know him mostly for Western, but this is one where it's a great story too. This guy who he goes back to Ireland because his parents, I think, are from Ireland, and he was a boxer, but he kind of retires from boxing because he anyways and goes to Ireland because he wants to get married and settle down and live in Ireland, where his parents grew up or something like that. Anyway, so it's a really good comedy. It's very funny. A lot of good actors here. Victor Mature plays kind of the mean jerk. who's actually the brother of O'Hara, who he falls in love with. But yeah, it's a good. They fall in love, and but then the brother doesn't like him because he bought land that he wanted, and so he doesn't want him to marry his sister because of it. But they still get married, but then he won't give him a dowry, which is like a big deal in Ireland. When a woman gets married, their parents have like money to give her when she gets married or something like that. And so her parents are around, so her brother's in charge of the dowry. And so, but he won't give it to her. And so she won't like consummate the marriage with John Wayne basically until she gets a dowry, which of course he's not very happy about that. And then he has to, and the brother wants to fight him, but he won't fight him because he hurt somebody in the ring as a boxer, and so he vowed never to fight again. And so they had some really good storylines there. John Wayne's fantastic. O'Hara's fantastic. Uh, it's directed by John Ford. In fact, it was John Ford's fourth win as Best Director, the only director to ever win 4 Oscars for Best Director, and he won his fourth one for this one, The Quiet Man. It's beautiful, also beautiful. Like it makes you want to go to Ireland. Like this is a movie where I'm like, I want to go to Ireland someday because just very beautiful scenery in this movie. Really shot very well. I think it might have won an Oscar for Best Cinematography maybe. Uh, but yeah, the green hills, the stone fences. Yeah, absolutely love it. One of my favorite parts of the movie. And there's a fight scene. There's a fight scene at the end of the movie. He finally gets in a fight with the brother. I'm spoiling that bit for the movie, but it's a long fight scene, just a punching kind of scene, where they go all over the place and fighting each other. And at the time, I don't know if it's still this way, but I know at the time it was the record for the longest fight scene in a movie. That might have been broken by now, but for a long time, at least, if not now, I had that kind of thing too. Anyways, that I thought was interesting. But yeah, really good romantic comedy. The Quiet Man. Definitely check it out. Number 5, another movie I don't have. I have my top 4 movies I do have on Blu-ray or DVD. Number 5 is one of my favorite musicals. It's my favorite musical from this time period. It's not Singing in the Rain, but it's another movie that I don't think gets enough love, and that is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. A really, really fun musical at this time period. And it's this guy named Adam who him and his brothers kind of live in the mountains and away from town, and they're kind of just work on the farm, and they just kind of secluded from everybody. And so Adam goes into town at the very beginning of the movie looking for a wife because he wants a wife anyway. So he goes in and he finds someone who's going to marry him just right on the spot, which is kind of funny. This girl decides to marry him, and so he doesn't tell her that he lives with 6 other brothers, and so he takes her back home, and then she finds out, oh, she's got to take care of him and his 6 brothers, and they're all kind of rough mountain men kind of people, not very civilized, not very courteous, not well kept type. So she kind of helps clean them up. They shave and they clean up, and they all want wives too now since Adam has a wife. And so then she's trying to help them figure out how to court women because they don't know how to talk to women really. And so then she takes them back into town, but then the guys in town don't like them because they're these secluded mountain men. And so it's their girls, so of course they're jealous. They don't want these guys coming in and taking their girls. So there's all this fighting and rivalry between them. But yeah, it's such a fun movie. It's a very funny movie. I love the comedy here, and it's the best movie as far as dancing goes. I do love it. I do love a good dancing movie, musical movie, where there are big sets and there's great dancing going on. You love that. And there's this one sequence that's one of my favorite sequences of all time in a musical, where they go on this they're building barns or something like that, and so they're having like a big shindig. I don't know. They all bring in food and they're eating, and then the guys are gonna put up a barn or something like that, I think, if I remember right, and or a house of some kind. And so they come along, the brothers, these brothers, and they're trying to impress the women, and the other guys are upset. So they have this dance fight where they're trying to outdance each other and kind of try to win over the women. And it's just such a fun sequence. And oh man, so many good moments. Great athleticism and dancing. Like I'm just so amazed by some of the moves that they do in here. And it's well, just incredibly well choreographed. Like it's such a fun scene. I just love it every time I watch it. And you can't tell the girls were kind of liking the mountain men and kind of preferring them at this moment. And then right after that, there's the second best scene is like right after that. It's this whole great sequence where they do this whole dance fight thing, and then they're building the house. And as they're building it, uh, the wife, I forget her name, like Lily or something like that. She um, she tells the brothers not to fight, like don't fight the other, don't get tempted because they really love to fight. Like there's at a moment's notice they want to get into fight, and so she's telling them don't get in a fight. That's going to ruin your chances with the women and all this. So they promise her that they won't get into a fight, but they don't tell Adam that Adam doesn't know about that. Anyway, so the town guys are as they're building this house, they're like sabotaging them. They're hitting them with their hammer. They're doing all this really terrible stuff. But they want to get in a fight, but they're like, oh, we promised not to get in a fight. Anyway, so and Adam's getting upset because Adam's like, why don't you guys get in a fight? We should, that's what we do. And they can't tell him, oh, we promised, your wife that we wouldn't get into a fight. Anyways, and so then they finally they attack Adam, and once they attack Adam, then they're like, okay, the fight's on because Adam is no part of this. So, anyways, I say all that to say it sets up this big fight in this somewhat built house. Like they're building just the frame of the house, and so they're fighting all over this house, knocking things over, and they eventually knock the whole house down. It is such a fun sequence, really well choreographed fighting, and athleticism, and it's such a great sequence. But yeah, those two for those two scenes, I just absolutely love this movie. There is some problematic stuff in this movie, like they decide to kidnap the women and take him back into the mountains, and and like that was a good idea, and it's like, and then the wife is like, that was a terrible idea. You never should kidnap women, And then they realize, oh, we made a mistake. But then the women still fall in love with him, so that part's a little problematic, but I still love it, and it's definitely a movie that's very macho man, which I like that. It's very politically incorrect movie as well, and I kind of like that we're in this like politically incorrect time period as far as gender roles and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a really fun movie. Like I said, great dancing, great music. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. If you haven't seen it, gotta check it out. It's a great movie. All right, number 4 on my list I do have, and this is a really good, I would say, comedy, some drama, and it is Mr. Roberts. Came out in 1955. Man, look at this cast. I mean, yeah, like I said, Jack Lemmon in his second movie. I think this is like the only second movie that Jack Lemmon did, and he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for this role in only his second movie. And so you got kind of a younger Jack Lemmon here. Instant Pulver, such a great character. In my opinion, probably the funniest performance of all time. Like, watch this just for Jack Lemmon. He gives such a great comedic performance here. But yeah, James Cagney, really good actor, playing the captain, who's kind of the jerk that everybody hates. Of course, Henry Fonda is playing the main role, Mr. Roberts, which Henry Fonda played on Broadway and won a Tony, I believe, for Best Actor. So he did this role for like many, many years. He didn't do any movies. There was a period of time where he kind of went away, I think during World War II period into this time period. He stopped doing movies and he just did theater because he loved doing theater. And so he originated this role, Mr. Roberts, on Broadway, and it was a huge hit. It was a huge Broadway musical. I mean, not musical. It's not a musical, sorry. It was a huge Broadway play, and he was huge on it. It's definitely his probably best role he's ever done. Anyway, so here he's doing the movie version, which interesting because he's a little bit older now because he started this, I think, the play in the 40s. And so the character is supposed to be younger, but they still, of course, Henry Fonda made it famous, so they got him for the role. And then you got William Powell, who's another really great actor. This is William Powell's last film role. If you don't know William Powell, he's a great actor from even the 30s into the 40s. The Thin Man series, I absolutely love the Thin Man series. He plays the lead on that. And he's done a lot of comedies. Really good comedic actor, anyways, and he's great. So, I mean, it's one of the best casts I've ever seen in a movie. But yeah, it's as you see from the picture there, it's a World War II movie set They're in the Navy. They're on a cargo ship, a Navy cargo ship, and James Cagney's the captain. He's a huge jerk that everybody hates, and Henry Fonda's kind of like the second in command on the vessel, and everybody likes him. He's very nice to everybody, and he's a bit rebellious towards. He talks back to the captain, which you're not supposed to. Nobody, the captain didn't take any gruff from anybody, but he's always kind of making life miserable for the captain, and he wants to leave. Actually, what's interesting, I think the storyline's really great. It's all about Mr. Roberts wants to leave this cargo ship to get onto a battleship because he's never seen any battles during World War II, and he feels like the war's almost over, and he's gonna go back home. And like, what does he have to show for it? Like, he didn't, do anything heroic, or he didn't, face any battles. He was just on a cargo ship, which they just gave, stuff to the battleships, and so he feels like he, didn't do enough for the war effort, I guess, being on the cargo ship. And so he wants to get off, but the captain won't let him. Like, he has to write a letter to get transferred, but the captain always, says, he doesn't want him to transfer, so he never gets transferred. And it's a jerk thing to do because the captain wants to keep him on the ship because he's such a good officer, and he's such a good, he does such a good job that he thinks he'll help him get promoted to admiral, basically. So he's basically using him to get promoted to admiral. And not letting him leave the ship. So it's for his own selfish gain, basically. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. He's very selfish. Anyway, so there's a big animosity between Mr. Roberts and the captain. And William Powell plays the doctor, who's absolutely hilarious in it. And then Jack Lemmon plays the he's the laundry. He's an officer, so he's with the officers, but he's laundry and morale is his title anyway. So he's a laundry guy, but anyways, and then you have a bunch of other sailors, of course, under them, and they love Mr. Roberts because he was rebellious, because they hate the captain. They love that he's rebellious towards the captain, and it kind of just takes place on this ship, and different funny things happen. Like, they find some nurses, and they invite the nurses, these female nurses, on the boat. It's a really funny sequence. Jack Lemmon's absolutely amazing because he's a bit of a he talks big, but he's a bit of a coward. Like, he always talks like he's going to, tell the captain, his opinion. But then when the captain's around, he runs the other way because he's scared to death of the captain. And he keeps threatening to do stuff like put marbles. He says and under his bed he has a jar of marbles. Like, I've been gathering marbles all day long, and he's going to put marbles over his overhead so it'll rattle during the night or something like that. And then he decides he's going to build a bomb, or not bomb, but a firecracker, and put a firecracker under his bed. And it's absolutely hilarious. All the threats are, of course, pretty empty for the most part, but it's a great character. And yeah, it just kind of follows them. And like, one of the big plot points is that they haven't been on leave for a long time, and they're going crazy, and they're starting to fight each other. And there's a lot of tensity because they need to get off that ship. Leave. They get to go on land for like 24 hours, and it's like a vacation where they just kind of go crazy. Anyway, so that's kind of the climactic moment of the movie where Henry Fonda has to get the captain to let them get on leave, and so he has to make a sacrifice. He has to sacrifice his ability to write transfer letters in order to. But it's a great moment because he sacrificing his own. It's the difference between him and the captain, that he's very selfless. He sacrifices what he wants most to help out the rest of the ship and help them out, because he knows they need that leave to let off steam from being on this boat on the water. Because you're on a boat on the water for long period of time, you're gonna go crazy. So he knows this is good for the morale of the ship, and to survive this, war, even though they're not in battle, but they still, have to fight boredom and, all that, and just being secluded from everybody. Yeah, so that's a really great moment, and then the climax is so funny, so wonderful. I won't even say exactly what goes on, but I just say, gotta watch this. I've even told Mike from Did You See That? I even recommended to him to review it on his channel. So I hope he checks it out at some point, Mike from Did You See That, and watches this movie and reviews it, because it is a great comedy from this period of time. There's some dramatic moments, but it's mostly a really funny movie. All right, number 3. This is one on everybody's list, and Jackson mentioned this. If you haven't seen this, you have to see this movie, 12 Angry Men. Absolute great it's, you'd say a courtroom drama, though there's no courtroom. Uh, but it is a wonderfully acted. The script is absolutely amazing. Um, yeah, it's just one of the best movies ever made. Gotta see 12 Angry Men. Stars Henry Fonda again. I love Henry Fonda, one of my favorite actors. Kind of playing the lead, and it's all about 12 men that are on a jury. It's all about these jurors who you don't really see any of the courtroom stuff. You just know that this kid from, he's from like an ethnic background, who's from the slums, who his dad was murdered, and so they think the son did it. And that's all you really know going into it. And then so you meet these 12 guys, and really good cast. I said Henry Fonda's in there. Lee J. Cobb is absolutely amazing. He's really kind of a villain, I guess you can say, in the movie. He's a real jerk. Um, Lee J. Cobb's great. Ed Begley plays a racist jerk, a really horrible person. But Jack Warden's great in here. I love Jack Warden. Martin Bassam, John Fielder, who does the voice of Piglet in the Winnie the Pooh movies, is in here. He's really good though. Jack Klugman, who you probably know from The Odd Couple, maybe, and very good. Anyways, but yeah, 12. It all takes place in one room. It's one of the. I usually don't like movies that take place in one room, but it's one of those that works so well. It's Sidney Lumet's, I think, first movie. It came out in like '57. Sidney Lumet was mostly a television director, or he directed like television plays or something like that. And this was, of course, a play first, and then they made it into a movie, and it's a very popular play. Um, and Sidney Lumet would go on to make really good movies in the '60s period, like Network, I think, Dog Day Afternoon. Really great director, I think. One of my favorite directors, anyways. And this is his first movie, and this is his best movie, I think. And it's amazing. Just because it's like you get 12 actors in a room, and the whole movie takes place in this room, and it's just 12 actors being great 12 actors. Like, it's just, the acting is so good in this movie, and the back and forth dialogue. And the dialogue is amazing. It's a great script. I mean, it's just based on, and the directing's good, even though somehow he has to make it cinematic, even though it's all taking place in one room. Somehow Sidney Lumet makes it still looks cinematic, the way he moves the camera around and close-ups and all that. And it's such a great story, though. I love the story idea. Like, uh, they get in this room, and 11 of the 12 jurors right away think, oh, this kid's guilty. It's obvious, you know. And so they go, oh, everybody goes guilty except for one person. That's Henry Fonda's character says not guilty. And of course, they're like, not guilty. It's obvious he's guilty. How can and he basically says, well, this kid's going to get like the death penalty. Let's, take a little more time to, talk about this. Let's make sure this kid's guilty before we, send him to the electric chair, basically like it's this idea that we have this person's fate in our hands, let's talk about it. Let's give this kid a chance of some kind, and so it's great that he starts out the only person that's saying not guilty, and not because he thinks the kid's maybe not guilty, but just because I don't know, he just feels for this kid because he's poor, he comes from the slums, he probably had a hard life, and anyway, so then he goes through the case, and that's how you find out about the case through all this, and and they bring in different items from the case, and they go through different arguments during the case. And I'm not sure if that's what jury's supposed to do, though. I have to admit, when I watch it, I think that's a lawyer's job. I don't know if it's a juror's job to do that, but I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I've never been in that kind of situation. But it's interesting how he goes through the case, and like one by one, he puts, and it's all about, if there's any doubt of your guilt, then you should be not guilty. You should only be guilty if you're 100% sure. Like, and which I think is a good message behind the whole movie, is that you don't want to give someone a death penalty unless you're 100% sure or whatever. And so the whole idea is like, if there's any kind of doubt, if you doubt that he did it, then he's got to be not guilty. Anyway, so he kind of goes through the case and kind of pokes holes in it, and slowly more jurors are starting to get convinced and starting to say, no, I think he's not guilty now. I have doubt, or at least I have doubt. There's doubt in my mind that there's a chance that he didn't do it. And so it's really great. I love that. It's just a great story element, and great how the way they do it, how you see people. And then there's like two, like Ed Begley and Lee Jacob, who are just horrible human beings, who just won't say it just because And of course there's some racism because the kid's like from some ethnic background. And Lee J. Cobb has like his character. There's a really good character moment where it turns out that he has a strange relationship with his own son, and so he sees this kid as like his own son, anyways. And yeah, some just great moments in here. And like I said, there's some yelling going back and forth. Some tensity there in the arguments. And yeah, it's just an amazing, amazing movie. One of the best acting, best scripted movies I think of all time. And you're never bored, even though it's all in one room. You never get bored of what's going on because of the way they perform, anyways. And it's a great ending to it. Yeah, just if you haven't seen it, you have to see 12 Angry Men. Excellent, excellent movie. The original Godzilla film, Gojira, from 1954. Yeah, Godzilla. Yeah, that's true. The Godzilla starting out in this period, the 1950s. Really, I've never seen those old ones. I have to admit, I've seen like probably clips from them. Those old Godzilla movies with the Japanese people running away and him setting things on fire. Trailer is of my mom's favorites. Yeah, I think if you haven't seen this movie, if you have seen it, usually everybody agrees it's a great movie. It's one of their favorites of this time period. All right. Number 2 on my list is my favorite John Wayne movie of all time, and that is The Searchers, also my favorite Western of all time. There's John Wayne there. Yeah, absolutely fantastic story of this guy coming back from the Civil War to his brother and his family, and anyways, and kind of getting back into society, I think. And a bit of a rough character, of course. John Wayne, as John Wayne likes, rough, tough guy. And while he's there, they go on. What's his name? Ward Bond, who's also in Ward Bond's also in Mr. Roberts. He has a smaller part, but he's really good in Mr. Roberts as well. And Ward Bond's one of those guys he's in Quiet Man as well. He's great in The Quiet Man. He's like he's a lot of John Ford movies, a lot of John Wayne movies. He plays usually smaller parts, but he's always fantastic. Ward Bond, anyways. And here he plays the sheriff or something. And they're going after some Native Americans that were in the area anyway. So they go out to chase these Native Americans. You got Vera Miles has a small part here, who's from Kansas, actress from the state of Kansas. Jeffrey Hunter plays like a mix of Native American and American, and white. He's like a little bit of Native American in him, so there's some racism going on there. But he's like a nephew or something of John Wayne's character. And then you got Natalie Wood, very young Natalie Wood, of course, would appear in West Side Story and stuff like that, and was in like Miracle on 50, was it 51st? Was it Miracle on 34th Street or whatever? Which is another good movie. I think that came out in the 1950s. I didn't put it on my list, but that's another good Christmas classic from this time period. That might be 1940s. I can't remember. But anyways, Natalie Wood, she's a little bit older here than then, but yeah, it's still pretty young. Natalie Wood here has kind of a small part. But anyways, so they go out to chase these Native Americans, but it turns out it was just a decoy, and that when they were gone, the other Native Americans, the main one's name is Scar. That's like the main bad guy is this Native American named Scar. And so they go and they raid the house and they kill everybody in the house except for like 2 of the girls. They kidnap and take with them. Anyway, so John Wayne, comes back, and his brother and his brother's wife, which they kind of hint that he was in love with his brother's wife, like there's a previous relationship between the two. So of course he's devastated. His brother and his brother's wife, I think, are killed, and then they find out that his 2 nieces are still alive, probably, that they were taken. So then the whole movie, it's called The Searchers, because the whole movie is him searching for his nieces and trying to take them back from the Native Americans that's kidnapped them and bring them back home, kind of idea. And so it takes a long time. And the whole movie takes, I don't know how long, but it takes years, I think, years and years of him searching for his nieces, anyways, and with a group of other guys, and like his nephew Jeff, played by Jeff Hunter, is with him, and they don't get along either. But yeah, great Western. It's some great, shootout scenes. And John Wayne gives a great performance. I think the best performance of John Wayne's career. Like I said, Quiet Man's a really great performance, but John Wayne really should have like won an Oscar for this performance. I think he was so good. Um, there's some really good dramatic moments, of course, some sad moments that he does a good job in, and there's some comedic moments as well in there. But John Wayne just being John Wayne, and he's so good at that kind of character that he does, the tough Western guy, you know. But yeah, it's shot wonderfully. It's a really well shot movie. It's John Ford, of course, one of the greatest directors of all time. Yeah, really shot well. It's a great story, really pulling for him to find his niece throughout these years, and yeah, just a wonderful story. And yeah, it just if you like westerns, if you haven't, you've probably seen Searchers, and I can't believe this wouldn't be on top of your list if you like westerns, or if you like John Wayne movies. I mean, it's got to be the top of your list. And yeah, absolutely love this movie. It's second on my list of 1950s. Hello, Psych Donnelly. Okay, cool. Thanks for viewing in. Yeah, The Day There Stood Still. Yeah, um, it's your favorite movie. Okay, yeah, it's one of the early sci-fi, classics of aliens, dealing with aliens. Kind of, they're not taking over the world in that one. They're just kind of threatening the Earth, basically. Like if Earth doesn't get together, they're gonna, bad stuff are gonna happen. I think, and I think it's because of nuclear, because Earth is dealing with nuclear war at that time, or something like that. And so an alien comes down, and there's uh, kind of tells America to get it all together. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. All your favorites are from 1950s. Yeah, it's a lot of good ones. But up to my number one favorite movie from the 1950s. I'm close enough. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. uh, but yeah, favorite movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. Probably my top 10 favorite movies of all time. And that has been Her. Number one movie for me for the 1950s. Came out in 1959. Charlton Heston. I mean, interesting about Charlton Heston. He is in, I want to say maybe his first movie, I think, is The Greatest Show on Earth. He gets, which is a Cecil B. DeMille movie. He gets, and I think he was a theater actor who then, well, thank you. It's a great choice. Yeah. He was like a theater actor, I believe, and his wife was a theater actress. And he kind of got into Hollywood at this time, and he fought in World War II. In fact, I don't think he saw any battle, but I think he was in World War II. But anyways, Charlton Heston, I have a biography up here. That's why I know some stuff about him that I've read. But anyways, he's one of my favorite actors. But I think it was like he was like walking on in the studio area, and he saw Cecil B. DeMille, and he said hi and like waved at him, and he didn't know Cecil. They never met before, and Cecil didn't know who he was, but he said hi and waved at him. It was like has a nice smile, I guess, and Cecil B. DeMille was like, look, to someone's like, who's that guy? And like, oh, it's a new actor that we signed on at the studio named Charlton Heston. And he was like, I think I have a good role for him, and stars him in The Greatest Show on Earth. I mean, kind of has a starring role in that. So it was one of those things where Charlton Heston, just because he was nice and said hi to Cecil B. DeMille, he got a great role in a movie that won Best Picture, The Greatest Show on Earth. Anyways, through that performance, he then got the, yeah, I'm sure he did some other movies, but then he got the Ten Commandments, which was Cecil B. DeMille directed movie. And so when he was going to do, he needed the lead character Moses. He was like, oh, let's get Charlton Heston because he did The Greatest Show on Earth. Anyway, so that became like the biggest movie and really the touchstone movie of uh, Charlton Heston's career. That's a movie that really made him big and famous because it was a huge role and a very popular movie that did really well. And of course, it's very epic, And so he does that, and then right after that, William Wyler was doing a movie with Gregory Peck. Now I'm forgetting the name of the movie. It's a Western, though, that William Wyler does. And so he wants to do it with, Gregory Peck's going to play the lead character, but he wants Charlton Heston to play this other kind of co-lead character. somewhat supporting character. And Charlton Heston at the time was like, they gave him the script, and he's like, this is after he just did the Ten Commandments, this role, and I think it's called Big Country. Yeah, the name of the movie is Big Country, anyways. And Charlton Heston looked at the script and he's like, oh, this is a smaller role than what I did in Ten Commandments. So at first he was like, he didn't want to do the role because he thought, oh, this is more of a co-role. And at the time, Charlton Heston thought of himself as like, a lead actor. He wants to do lead roles. And so at first he wanted to turn it down, but then his agent was like, are you crazy? It's William Wyler. William Wyler is like one of the best directors out there. And everybody would die to work with William Wyler. I mean, he already won Best Picture and Best Director for Mrs. Miniver in 1942, and the greatest what's it called, The Greatest Year of Our Life, The Greatest Years of Our Lives, or that came out in 1946 and won Best Picture. Anyway, so here he has 2 Oscars, and he's actually, William Wyler is known as like having the most. He's directed the most Oscar winners, like. A lot of people have won Oscars that have acted, in his movies. Anyway, so his agent's like, are you crazy? It's William Wyler. You got to do a William Wyler movie. She's asking you if he wants you in that role. So then Charlton Heston's like, oh, okay. So he does The Big Country, which is an okay movie. And then when Ben-Hur comes around, William Wyler's doing Ben-Hur. Of course, he worked with Charlton Heston in Big Country. And so he wanted him for the main role as Ben-Hur, which is the biggest role of his life. Of course, is one of the biggest movies of all time. Also, not also just box office wise, but it's only one of 3 movies to win 11 Oscars. The others being, is it 1 of 3? Yeah, because the others being Titanic and Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. Only 3 movies win 11 Oscars, so it still has that tied for the most Oscar wins for a movie. Absolutely huge movie. Charlton Heston wins Best Actor for it. William Wyler wins Best Director. So really great for Charlton Heston getting this role, the role of a lifetime. And it's just funny to think, like, if he didn't say hi to Cecil B. DeMille and get the role in Grace on Earth, he wouldn't have gotten, the Ten Commandments role, he might not have gotten the Big Country role, and he wouldn't have gotten this Ben-Hur role. So it's kind of this crazy, like, sequence of like chance that Charlton Heston got into this role. But man, he's perfect here. Ben-Hur, it's definitely, it's like a 3.5 hour movie. It's a long movie, and a lot of people diss the movie because of the length, but I still think I don't think it's boring at all. I think it's actually, I mean, I think you could have shortened it. Yeah, he could have shortened to 3 hours, and maybe that would have been a good choice. But still, even at 3.5 hours, I still am intrigued throughout the whole story. And I've seen this so many times, and I still love it over all these years. And it's another movie my parents loved. It's like my parents' favorite movie. And so I grew up watching this since I was a kid. And my parents were always watching this movie. Again, another good movie during like, Easter time. It's obviously another just huge epic movie, period piece, costuming, you're dealing with the Romans. So you got the Roman soldiers, wearing the Roman outfits. Yeah, it goes over many years and many things happen. And the base story is Ben-Hur. It also takes place during Jesus' time, which is great. As a Christian, I love the Jesus moments where he does certain things, and they kind of intertwine his story within the Ben-Hur story. And at the very end, in fact, he witnesses Jesus Christ's crucifixion and what happens there. Anyways, and it's a great moment. It's a really great moment, and in fact, it makes me cry when I watch it. Because you're seeing Jesus being crucified, which is always a powerful moment as a Christian. Which is interesting because it kind of goes along with the biblical epics. Like I said, I do love these biblical epics of this time, like The Robe and Ten Commandments, and then this movie I throw in there. I do love those kind of movies. But Ben-Hur, he's a wealthy, he's kind of a leader in this Jewish area of Judea, I guess, I think it is, or whatever. And the Romans are taken over, and but there's still some, Jewish, they don't get along with the Jewish people necessarily. And but Ben-Hur has a friend that he grew up with, his like best friend, who's now a Roman, leader, centurion, whatever, who's kind of in charge of the area. And his friend wants him to talk to the Jewish leaders and to, give control to the Romans or something, or, whatever. But he won't do it because he's like, I'm not going to back stab my own people, the Jewish people. Like, I'm not going to turn my back and be a traitor. And so his friend's upset. And while the Romans are going through the town, a kid is on top of a roof, and a brick goes loose and falls down and hits one of the Roman soldiers. And so they think someone tried to kill the Roman soldier and threw a brick. And of course, it was just an accident. But when they find out that it was Ben-Hur's house that it happened at, he enslaves Ben-Hur. He takes Ben-Hur and arrests him and charges him because he wants to get revenge because he won't help him out. And so then he goes into prison. Uh, he his I think it's his mother and his sister goes to prison as well. I mean, of course, and then he ends up on this ship that he's a rower. Where it's a great sequence where they're all these guys rowing this Roman ship, and they're in battle, and this battle happens. Anyways, and Ben-Hur ends up saving the life of like the Roman captain. So when they go back to Rome, he gets freed being a slave. And then becomes like because he's like basically becomes adopted son of this wealthy Roman general. He then becomes like a great chariot racer and all this, but then he wants to go back to see his family because he doesn't know what happened to his family, and he goes back and to where he's from, and there's like a girl Esther that he was in love with that he finds, and then he finds out that his mom and sister have leprosy and they're in a leper colony. And so he's devastated by this. And so then he wants to get revenge against his friend. And so it's kind of a revenge movie. This is I'm telling a long story of the movie, but it basically comes around to it's almost like a revenge story of him wanting to get revenge on his friend who did this to him, and, devastate him and his family. And of course, it climaxes into this great chariot race. I mean, it is the scene of the movie where you have these like 6 or 8 chariot race, and there's no CGI. It's just real people with these chariots with 4 horses or whatever, and they have to go around this this race around this arena. And I don't know how they shot it. I mean, it's just amazing how they shot that whole scene. And anybody that watches the movie probably say that's the best scene in the movie. It's hard not to say that. It is an absolutely amazing scene. It's very intense, them racing, and it's just a really great sequence. Definitely, even today's standards, I still watch this movie that was made in 1959, and I'm impressed by the filmmaking because it must have been very hard. They must have had to take a lot of takes, a lot of camera angles to get this, and they must have had to do it many times. I mean, there's danger because you get all these horses that you're running alongside each other. Something could go wrong. I mean, absolutely incredible filmmaking. Definitely deserves the best picture and director and all that, and acting, all that, cinematography, whatever. Absolutely amazing all throughout. And then, like I said, then you get to the whole he kind of finds forgiveness. This movie's about forgiveness because he has a heart. He wants to get revenge against the Roman Empire, and through seeing Jesus being crucified Jesus died for not doing anything wrong. He died just because he was claimed to be God, and so he sees Jesus, who he counters during the movie. Jesus helps him out during the movie, so he kind of sees Jesus, and he it's like, I know this guy. He helped me out. And he's like, what did he do wrong? And it's like, he did nothing wrong. He's crucified. And so he finds, the ability to find forgiveness, and kind of gets converted, I would say, to, believe in Jesus. Another great movie kind of dealing with the Christian topic of conversion that I love. And so it's such a great moment, very powerful moment of him kind of realizing that, he needs to forgive, and to not get revenge, not seek revenge, and all that, which could, ruin his life even further. Anyway, so yeah, it's just a very powerful movie, I think, emotionally. Great sequences, even for the 50s, man, some really great sequences that they were able to pull off. And yeah, really great story, great messaging. Absolutely love this movie. One of my favorite movies of all time. Number 1 on my list, Ben-Hur. All right. My sister has a off-topic question. When you're done, I'm wondering if you've seen The Bear on Hulu. I'm over halfway done the 2nd season. It's really growing. Okay, I've heard of The Bear. I have not seen it. I know the actor. I think he won an Emmy this last year for The Bear, which I never heard The Bear until like the last Emmys, I think. And I feel like the main actor won the award for like actor in a drama or something like that. Anyway, so that's the first time I heard about it, and which is weird. The Bear. You're thinking like a grizzly bear or something like that, but he's like a chef, I think, in a restaurant, a family restaurant or something like that. And I've heard a lot of people say it's a really good show, but I haven't checked it out. So yeah, I'll have to check that out, Abby. If you're saying it's pretty good, yeah, I'll see if I can find it and watch it. But yeah. Anyway, so that's my top 10 favorite movies of the 1950s. If you're viewing in late, number 10 was White Christmas. Number 9, The Ten Commandments. Number 8, Anatomy of a Murder. Number 7, The Robe. Number 6, The Quiet Man. Number 5, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Number 4, Mr. Roberts. Number 3, 12 Angry Men. Number 2, The Searchers. And number 1, Ben-Hur. Anyway, so that's my top 10 favorite movies of the decade. I hope you, some of you watches, enjoy that. Definitely check these movies out if you haven't. Hope these are good recommendations to anybody. And I'm sure and people giving good recommendations in the chats. I really appreciate that. Anyway, so and that's all I really got. And I need to go eat some supper. I haven't eaten yet, but I appreciate everybody viewing in and hope you all have a good rest of the weekend and a good week. Bye.